Welcome back, and I could not be more pleased to be joined by genuinely one of the nicest people you could ever meet, and Irish training legend Arthur Moore. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you for inviting me. It's a great privilege.
Well, they asked who did you want. You were the first in line, and why not? You've had some fantastic horses, you've had a great career, and you've more knowledge than any of us here in the studio combined. Where shall we start?
No, well, you're very kind. I've just been very privileged, very lucky. I've made so many friends, equine and human, through the racing world. And I've had a fantastic, healthy life. And there's no better life than being with horses.
If you enjoy it, there's no better place to be. But of course, you were born into it, a dynasty of your own. Take us back to the days of Dan and Joan Moore and a certain Lescargo.
Yes, well, we go back. My father originally was beaten a short head in the 1938 Grand National.
1938?
Yeah, by Battleship, Bruce Hobbs. And then he actually trained and rode during the 40s, and he had a headman run as trainer and ran in his name because he couldn't do both at the time.
Okay, that wasn't allowed?
No. And then we move on, and I was in Downside, and I left Downside at the age of 18, and Lescargo had won his bumper in March that year, ridden by Ben Hanbury, who'd been assistant with the father for around 4 years.
What age were you when Lescargo was winning his bumper?
18.
You weren't given the leg up?
I was at school in England, and I left school in June, and he was second. He beat Gary Negree, horse of Tom Draper's, in Navan. Okay. And the father fancied the horse very well, and he was a good price, and he had owners in the north of Ireland who were punters, and Raymond Guest wanted to back him. So these guys did the commission. So Guest wanted to send a car up to collect the money.
There was always confidence behind Lescargo, even from the bumper days.
There you are. And then Gary Negree was second with the Tom Drapers, and Gary Negree beat Lescargo with the penalty in Punchestown. Wow. And then I stepped in, left school, and...
So you didn't go to university?
I did. The University of Life.
Ah, so the one that's completely underrated.
I started off as a student, and Ben helped me for a month before he headed back to Newmarket to Bernard Van Cutsem. And then there were a couple of guys with my father who'd been with him for decades, so I applied my trade with them and gradually worked my way in to be sort of assistant trainer.
So your dad was one of those professional, you have to earn your way, you're not just going to get the leg up because you're my son?
Oh, no, it was just a gradual process, and I took an interest in nutrition and in breeding at the same time, and so it worked very well. I was privileged then to have the full career. I went 8 years in a row with Lescargo to Cheltenham.
8 years in a row?
4 years to Aintree, and 2 years to America to Belmont Park, where he won the Temple Gwaltney Chase, and then to South Carolina, where he was fourth in the Colonial Cup.
I didn't realise. He was Horse of the Year in America.
He was, and a few years later they inducted him to the Hall of Fame as well. He ran 53 races.
Amazing.
He won 12 and he was placed in 20.
And was he just really sound, very hardy, very genuine? What was his biggest trait?
He probably wasn't genuine, but he was very sound. And the reason why he was able to race for so long was he always kept back a bit for himself.
Those blinkers were needed, were they?
The blinkers worked in the first year in the National. He fell or brought down at the chair. Then he was third, second, and first, and he trotted up with the blinkers.
They must have been magic days.
They were indeed. Yeah. He was an iron horse, and that's he deserves that. David Owen's just written a book on him. A lovely read.
A book you gave me.
Yeah.
I have to read this. You talk about Cheltenham and Aintree, of course, winning both races is magic, but the Gold Cup must have been one of those fantastic days.
It was indeed. Right. Yeah, we fancied him. I remember backing him. He was 25 to 1, so we must have fancied him.
You'd no blinkers on to this day?
He didn't wear blinkers until the Grand National, but he won, I believe.
And did Tommy ride him most days? Or?
He rode him in all the big races. Yeah. I rode him once in Ferry at the beginning of the season. He fell in the second. He wasn't a spectacular jumper. He was safe and he's economical. He's not getting himself there.
Yeah, he doesn't go to the front, win 10 lengths. He just does enough.
Right. He's good. He was a big, strong horse, but he wasn't a heavy horse. He was very good combination.
And of course, those colours, Survivor as well. They were.
There you are. Yes. Well,
he was a very lucky owner, I guess.
His ambition was to win a Larkspur as well, to win the Derby and the Grand National. So when he won the Grand National, he gave the horse to the parents and headed back to London, and he achieved his ambition. There's no such thing as paying them any money to feed the horse for the next 10 years.
Oh my God.
Anyway,
that was a little bit.
He ran, and parents ran him in the Stowe, and the Kerry National was extraordinary, a tight track and top weight, and it just touched off, and communications weren't great in those days. And Mr. Guest wasn't a happy camper, so the horse went back to America to retire. But Virginia, Raymond's daughter, was very upset with her father, and she actually wanted to come to Tommy's funeral, but he wasn't able to make it in the day. But she felt very bad about that.
Okay.
He could have won another national. Certainly would have been placed again.
Really?
He was good as ever.
He was one of those magic horses, and you've been lucky to have a couple of good ones yourself. You rode the Irish National winner yourself.
I did. I was very lucky to be associated with a horse called King Sprite, who was trained by Georgie Wells, who originally came from England to ride for Senator Parkinson on the Flat. And he developed, he got jaundice, and he went to a hospital in Dublin, and my father brought him back to Ferryhouse to recuperate. And he spent 3 years with my father before setting up on his own. Okay. And so when I started riding, he supported me as a sort of thanks to my father looking after him. And King Sprite was an amazing horse. He was my second winner, and the first winner I rode over hurdles. Okay. And then that was against amateurs. Then first winner I rode over hurdles against professionals, which was 4 days later, Naas and Ferryhouse. He was the first winner I rode over fences. He'd run the novice chase in Navan 3 weeks earlier with Tommy rode him. He was the odds-on favourite. And I said to Georgie shortly after the race, "Bad luck, George." "What do you mean bad luck, Jack?" He says, "It's odds-on." He walks on. I rode him 3 weeks later in amateur. He won in Leopardstown 7-1. Okay. And he went on, and exactly the day of the Grand National. In fact, I'd ridden him the previous time in a hurdle race, and he won, and I crossed, and I put back to second, and his owners wanted to chuck me off, but Georgie stuck by me anyway, and then he's taking the saddle off me at 9-10 or something, so only paperweight of a saddle, and he'd had a few jars with Fuke Walden earlier in the day, and I asked him, did he want a breastplate? "What do you mean? I don't train bucking greyhounds," Jack, he said. Anyway, the horse, everybody went perfect in the race, and he won well. It was brilliant, yeah.
1971, no breastplate. You never train a horse with a breastplate either. You must have been taking a little bit of that on board.
There you are, exactly, yeah.
So that would start your affinity with the Irish National, because you went on to train a couple of winners of it yourself. Talk to me about Feathered Gale.
Yeah, Feathered Gale was, I think he was 25 years later, maybe. He was
96,
he was a very good horse. Yes, that would be right, wouldn't it? Yeah.
I think, yeah.
He'd won a Galway Plate and a Munster National, and then he was second in the Midlands National in unsuitable grounds. So again, he had a very good preparation for Ferryhouse, but more than his jockey did, because Franny was
Woods, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was in on the Saturday morning, and he couldn't raise his shoulder. And I said, "You can't ride them." He said, "I'll be all right. Fred Kenny look after me." So Fred gave me a few jabs and put him right.
Completely couldn't feel his shoulder.
Exactly, yeah.
And he went on, did he beat Cool Dawn? And what was the other good horse? That was a very good race. Dodami as well.
Dodami was, it's a big horse at the time. Yeah, he passed him going to the last, Mark Dwyer.
Yeah, and that was Feathered Gale, amazing horse. And then one of your probably best days would have been giving your niece the winner of the race. Yeah, well,
very much so. There was a lot going on there, because I bred the horse with my great pal and first owner, Tim Murray, who owned the Brockfield, who won the Arkle. And so that was very special as well. And my mother, I suppose, was her last days racing as well. She wasn't that well, so it was lovely that she was there.
What a day. So we're obviously talking about organised confusion and a certain Nina Carberry. It was 2011. I suppose for Nina it was fulfilling a lifetime ambition. She's a a local woman to there, and it's one of those iconic races. For you, was it a plan you mapped out a year in advance that you were going to bring off this big coup, or was it just something that fell into place?
Well, we started off with them. he wasn't that special looking 3-year-old, so we brought him to Doncaster.
You telling me you just couldn't sell him, and that's why you ended up keeping him?
Well, we had a reserve of 15 on him, and Ben Case went 15, and I got greedy and I bid 16, and he was knocked down to me. So I told Ben he could have him for the 15 if he wanted him, but he went back and thought he might take too much time. So there's so much luck involved in racing, you know.
He wasn't an old horse when he won the National, was he?
Well, hold on now. So well, I'll get through it as quick as I can. But,
Take your time. You're Arthur Moore.
So
you come to London.
I'm cantering him in September, and he's making a noise, so we hubbed him. And we're in Tenerife with...
in September of his 3-year-old year? 4-year-old year?
He's 3, yeah, 3 now, yeah. And so I'm in Tenerife in January, arranging to meet great friends, the Dunlops from the north, who are owners of ours, for lunch. And they went to the wrong place. And eventually Alan arrives in, and he's had a few jobs. Organised confusion, organised confusion. I said, good name for a horse. He said, find him. I said, you haven't. And that was how he bought him. And so Alan Jr. came down the next week. His son is a vet, and they loved him, and the deal was clinched. He ran, he was third in the point at Easter, and then the next season he ran the hurdle race in Downroyal at the festival, and Mary said after the race to Alan and me, that horse has to go chasing. So when Mary says something, you do it. So he went chasing.
We listened to Mary. Good.
And he won
life
his beginners as a 5-year-old in March, or February in heavy ground, and ridden by Russell, in the great Russell in Goran. And the following season, he ran in the Leopardstown Chase, and he was a long way back down the far side. And the owners were given a box by some friends, the Pollies, for the day. And I said, he can't win from here. And he finished third. Went up the box, I said, we're going to train him for the Irish National. Went home, looked at the programmes. There was the winners of one in Clonmel in 5 weeks, Chase. There was the winners of one hurdle in 5 weeks in Goran. And there was Irish National in 5 weeks. He won the winners of one in Clonmel, went up 4 pounds, got into the weights. Beaten a short head in the 2-mile winners of one hurdle by a flat horse of Mr. Barrs, Thomas Barrs, trained by ex-flat horse, Edward O'Grady. And then he had a great prep into the Irish National. Couldn't believe it when he was 33-1 when the betting opened.
Did you have a nibble?
Rang Mike, and he looked after us very well.
That must have been one, like, you've had great days, but for the family, you say your mum was there,
sure.
Nina, your sister Pamela, everybody, that was magic.
It was. Yeah.
I actually remember being there thinking that's stuff that you read in books or see in films.
Yeah. Well, there's magic when Bobby Joe won as well, you know,
yeah.
Tommy
and Paul and everybody involved.
Yeah.
And that was organised confusion. But then we move on to one of your 8 Cheltenham Festival winners.
Yep.
Certain Clairon Davis.
Clairon, yep. He was a quality horse, a class horse.
You sourced him from France.
Pierre Charles Lemaitre, another great man. We built up a great friendship, and he was starting to find horses for me. And he'd often send them over. I wouldn't have seen them. And this is the case with this horse. He rang me in December, and he said a nice horse. And so he arrived in January, and it was horrible weather. I put him straight out with the other stores, and within a week he had streaming nostrils. I said, oh my God. Anyway, we brought him in and isolated him and got him right. But I wonder would it affect his heart or his wind. It possibly affected his heart later on, but he was a very, very sound horse, wind-wise and limb-wise. And he had a lovely run in Punchestown in the festival. He was 6th, not stopping, but just not getting knocked about and getting educational. Went through the following season, won his bumper in October. Unbeaten over hurdles, 6 hurdles, and missed out Cheltenham, went to Ferryhouse in Punchestown and won both there. And
intentionally missed out Cheltenham during his hurdle days?
Yeah, his life after Cheltenham.
And then, did he just transform over fences, or was he just always that good?
Trevor Hogan rode him. Tom had retired at this stage, and Trevor Hogan rode him at Ferryhouse in Punchestown, and he rode him in Tipperary, and unfortunately for Trevor, he fell at the last, and when you're on the ground, you're wrong.
Yeah.
So Franny Wood started, he rode him in Navan in his beginners, and he didn't jump very well, but his class got him through, and he went on from there, and he won the Denny's of Christmas and the
Wins
or
the
the
Arkle.
Arkle, and then the Denny's maybe at Leopardstown, and then went on to Cheltenham. Yeah,
He was
beat
he
Sound Man.
extremely quick horse?
He was. He's powerful, and he had a lot of class. Yeah.
Yeah.
He had a very good cruising speed.
And this is the 96 champion chase at Cheltenham.
Yeah.
Magic?
Magic. Well, 6 weeks before that, he ran in Punchestown the handicap chase, and he routed the ditch down the far side. He finished second to Space Trucker, giving him a lot of weight. Within 10 minutes afterwards, in the stables, he was starting to go lame.
Oh.
And I rang Ned going, and by the time he went, we got him in the lorry, and by the time he got home, and Ned was in the yard, he came off the lorry in 3 legs. We thought he could have broken the show. We didn't know what had happened. And our great neighbours, the O'Callaghan's, lent me a big cluster laser, and Mary and her daughter Anna and myself, we shared rotors, and he started to walk, put his weight on in a couple of days, and each day he kept improving, and to the degree that in 10 days he was hacking again, and we schooled him around Leopardstown a fortnight before, and he was brilliant, and we knew we were back on track. And the following day, Guinness were hosting a lunch in Dublin. They were putting on a promotion for Cheltenham, and I sat up with Charlie Swan for lunch, and we were discussing the Queen Mother, and we were talking about Sound Man and Viking Flagship. And Charlie had ridden Sound Man the year before, and Dunwoody was riding him this year, and Adrian Maguire was riding Viking Flagship, and he said, if I was Adrian, I'd take on Sound Man down the hill. On the day, Adrian Maguire was injured, and Charlie rode him. So I said to Woodson, give him the saddle. Now at the top of the hill, you sit down.
You knew the
You sit
tactics.
behind. Those boys will take each other on. When you get across the second last, come on and join them at the last. And it worked perfect.
Jeez, it was work going to that lunch, wasn't it?
Yeah, indeed.
Was he the best you trained?
He was. Like, Native Ship was a top-class horse as well. And Royal Bond was our first good horse.
Yeah.
He won at Aintree, Cheltenham, Ascot, Sligo. He won his first race at the age of 5. His last race in Killarney at the age of 15.
This is Royal Bond?
Royal Bond. Last race in Killarney at the age of 15. And he won at least one race each year from the age of 5 to 15.
Years.
And after his first run, the owner said to get him vetted for insurance, and Ned going told me he had a murmur. And
those infamous murmurs, you know how common they seem to be quite prevalent in horses these days.
Yeah, well, look at Monty's Pass.
There's any amount of examples of good horses, yeah.
Yeah. I think the important thing is just have time between races, and I probably left the Gold Cup behind him by winning the Leopardstown Chase with 12 stone.
Okay.
There you go. But he was a hell of a horse. Yeah. Anyway, getting back to Clare, he won 20 races in all, and then Native Upmanship, he won over €1 million in prize money.
Yes, we talk about native upmanship. I remember him in the famous navy blue Magna colours. He was an extraordinary horse in his own right, wasn't he?
We bought him in the Derby sale. He had a stringhold, and he was just about to be knocked down. Willie walked up beside me. He said, "What's wrong with him?" I said,
Willie being Willie Mullins.
Mullins, yeah, certainly.
Oh, that wily minx.
Yeah. I said he's got a stringhold, and he walked away and bang, $8,000. So anyway, he went on. He was second in his bumper first time out. Gavin Donnelly rode him in Gorney, and we offered him to a couple of people, and the vets spun him for the stringhold, and then John Hallion actually passed him for John, and he wanted Philip Fenton won a bumper in him in Punchestown, and then he won the Grade 1 hurdle in Punchestown the following year. JP lost a very good horse in that race, so anyway he won it, and then he had a great career chasing. He won. He won the Durkin at least twice, and he was second in 2 Queen Mothers. There was no Ryanair in those days, and he won the Melling twice.
Would he have been better over a little bit further than
But 2.5 seemed to be his ideal trip.
This
But
is the Melling, 2002?
Right. Yeah. He built the springs.
Awesome jumper?
But again, I don't call him awesome, but he was built on springs. You know, he jumped very well. But.
And who was on board here?
Connor rode 170 across. A great friend.
This horse won 7 Grade 1s for you, 16 wins from his 53 starts. He did you a good turn as well, didn't he?
Oh, yeah, indeed. Yeah, he was a very laid back. Francois Cotard used to ride him out all the time.
He was working for you?
For 4 years, and he went on then and became leading trainer twice in France. Won the Grand Steep with Princess d'Anjou 2 years in a row, even though she hated the water. Ridden by my nephew, Philip Cabry.
Yes.
So we're always very proud of his.
Authorised daughter ran in Cork the other day. Isn't it funny how the full circle comes around?
Really, yeah. Right.
You've had some big names through your yard.
Yeah, well, I say when I left school, I went to join the University of Life, and I started as a student, and then I became principal.
Yeah.
And we've had some excellent students through, like Oliver Sherwood, and then we have Rafe Beckett and
He's doing okay for himself.
Richard Fahey was with us. He rode a winner at Christmas one year, Landness Touch Markery Castle, and then he's put on a few pounds since then. Tom George, Matt Shepherd, Ben Case, and then we've had other in France, and then Hugo Marianne is doing very well for them. And Ireland, we had Enda Bulger and Liam Cusack, and we'd Kieran O'Shea, who's leading head starter in Dubai and in England as well. Start the Derby, Dubai World Cup. He's done very well, and Gary Coffey from New South Park, and a few others.
So when somebody comes in to you, obviously trainer is different, every training style is different, everybody's outlook on how things should be done is different. What's the core, I suppose, elements you want somebody to learn before they leave the School of Art or Moor?
Oh, they just have to pick it up themselves.
Initiative, basically.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And if they don't have it, they don't have it. It's not your problem.
Yeah, well, if they ask a question, I'll naturally help them out. But it's use your own eyes.
Yeah, and work.
Yeah.
Bit of work.
That's right.
In the headlines the last couple of days has been, of course, Davy Russell. He was one of your major partners in Mansoni, another very good horse.
Indeed, yeah. Davy had his first Grade 1 winner for us on the Railwayman in Leopardstown, and it started a great friendship and relationship. He's an amazing person, an amazing jockey, and we had a great time. Mansoni won a couple of Grade 1s, and Tiger Cry won a Grand Annual. Yeah. So
you were the first man to identify a horse, Sire Call Germany, as a good horse.
Well, he made plenty at the Derby sale. He was a nice horse. Okay. Fiona Kinnear sold him, but yeah.
Mansoni, but being Mansoni was he Punchestown champion chase winner? He was a proper 2-miler as well?
He did. He was like, I think it was extraordinary. We thought he'd be pulling up halfway down the back straight, but Russell just sat, and then suddenly came alive. The ground was quite fast, and he wasn't really letting himself down, but he got flying up the straight. Yeah. He
got that all. And you mentioned you gave Davy Russell his first Grade 1 win. I asked a couple of people a quiz question during the week. Who gave Paul Townend his first Cheltenham Festival win?
Correct, yeah.
And it was, of course, What a Charm.
That's right, indeed, yeah.
But that's a lot of trust. You could have gone for any jockey.
Paul was riding really well at that time.
Yeah, he was already obviously a star.
Yeah, like JD said to me, now, when she got in, we didn't think she'd get in. Like, she ran in.
She was a bit tricky now, do I remember that?
She was a proper madam, yeah, indeed. And problems with jumping off and things. Yeah. But she ran in Fairy House 3 weeks before, and Davy rode her. And she got a bit, I think she was in front, she got spooked by a photographer going to the last fence, the first hurdle the first time around. Anyway, she ran, from the turn in she dropped out, and Davy dropped his hands. And I couldn't believe, she was all entered, but she was more or less written off Cheltenham, and I couldn't believe when I saw the weights. He'd actually handicapped her literally to where she finished in Fairy House to the pound. And the race was on.
You knew you were well in then.
And I was supposed to put blinkers on it that day, or cheek pieces, I don't remember which one it was. But anyway, I turned into the yard. Bloody, I forgot to declare them, and of course Tom Seagal thought I was being clever. He tipped him up for the Fred Winter, but I didn't forget to declare him for Cheltenham all right, and he gave her a great ride. And,
yeah, and she started.
Yeah,
was the heart fluttering?
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah.
It probably actually, I don't know whether she did much after this. She gave her all that day anyway. Like, you know.
Yeah, she went to John Ox, she did a bit on the flat. But
yeah, we shared her, yeah, exactly, yeah.
That was her only hurdles win.
It was, yeah.
What a day.
It's enough, yeah. She died sadly.
Some of the major other horses that, you could list them all day. Drumgora, Champion Chase, second schedule.
Yeah.
Any special horses that I suppose played a major part in your life?
Well, yeah, King John's Castle gave us a great tool, coming second in the Grand National, beaten by horse of Pipes, who was very handicapped, having won the Eider after the race.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
So that was exciting. And then we've had a lot of, always had a nice horse around the place, if you like.
You have a nice horse now, I think.
Yeah.
Hands of Gold.
Hands of Gold, exactly. He won a couple of nice races recently for us, and he'll be going for the final in Patchestown, sponsored by Red Mills. Yeah, he's quite promising now.
Yeah. You obviously you've seen a lot. You've been going to, as you mentioned, the Cheltenham Festival since the 60s. You didn't go last week, but did you enjoy it, watching it at home?
Very much, indeed. Maybe it's a bit lazy, but we didn't sort of we used to go with a gang and have a set. We sort of got out of the routine during COVID as well, but no, enjoyed it thoroughly. Do a couple of days in Aintree though. It's
changed a bit.
Yeah, well, it's for the better, I suppose. They're catering. It's not an easy job to cater for 60 or 70,000 people, but
no.
And the reports were good.
It certainly was. You've seen a lot of changes in racing. From how many horses would you had, in your pomp maximum?
50 to 60.
Never three figures. Never.
No. With 60 stables, 60 odd stables. So.
Yeah. And how do you feel, or how do you see it now when, Ireland used to go to Cheltenham and have possibly 1 or 2 winners, and now we're disappointed if we don't win 20?
I know. Well, it's the way it's gone, isn't it? I mean, the racing's evolved, and every decade brings a different story, but it's just gone a little bit crazy.
Yeah, how do you think that is? Do you think it's just that we've acquired the best horses? Because we know... a lot of the winners are coming from France and the UK, and is it just that we've got the buying power, or is it just that we're being a little, having the rub of the green at the moment?
Yeah, well, probably a bit of everything. Like, the English have reasonable buying power, but it just does seem to, the focus does seem to fall on the Irish trainers now, and the prize money in Ireland is so attractive as well.
That has to play a major role, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Indeed, and Willie and Gordon Willie's had a great way of sourcing these horses in France.
Yeah, like it's not like the Irish or the British trainers have forgotten how to train. Of course they haven't. And they have, Paul Nicholls had his number of winners, Dan Skelton won his handicaps. But is it the way we're sourcing them is different, or the points have completely changed from when I was a child?
Yeah.
The kind of funneling of talent that it now is.
That's right. Well, the bumper used to be the sales, showpiece. Now it's the points, and it's gone massive. It's quite extraordinary. But the boys do a very good job. They're brave men, the point men, but they're getting paid for it now. And
your family's very much involved, and talking about sourcing talent. Anna Ross, JD Moore.
Well, very proud of them all. And Kevin Ross Bloodstock. They've done really well. They've built up a good relationship in recent years with Harry Fry, and they've done brilliantly on the flat for Paul and Claire Rooney with the help of Jason Maguire. JD works very hard. He's a big clientele, done particularly well with Stuart Edmonds buying cheap horses. Marcada was probably the latest one, bought $4,000, and for Michael Keogh they got 80 before Cheltenham last year, and then she won this year for Henry. And then Andrew, our son, is in America he was with Paddy Power for 10 years over here, and he's now when Betfair and Paddy Power merged, he went out to Los Angeles.
Okay.
And now he is general manager of the racing division of FanDuel, which is a massive sports betting company out there. So he's getting on well. So
he's over the whole lot of us.
There you are.
And I always find it fascinating to talk to you about pedigrees and bloodlines, and how things have changed, and inbreeding, and all the different debates that we have, and nobody's ever really 100% right, but nobody's ever wrong. We talk about the French and how they've been doing so well. Is it a case of they've always been doing well, but they've just maybe had more horses in the UK and Ireland now? Or is it a case that, Ireland needs to find the next King's Theatre, find the next Flemensfurt, or find the next Shantou?
Well, there's nothing new about the French. Like Fortina won the Gold Cup at the full horse in the 40s.
Entire, yeah.
And he was a top class stallion. And then my father won the Galway Hurdle in about 1952 with the French bred. And then Ryan Price had Cantab and Rossite and other horses, really good French horses. Cantab again, a full horse. And another thing is that so many of these stallions, even English-based, Midnight Legend ran over hurdles, became a top stallion. It took him a while to prove himself. Celtic Cone ran over hurdles, was a top. So the jumping means a lot, and a lot of the French horses have even Blue Brazil, even though he black type on the flat, he was black type in Auteuil as well. So, and he was a super outcrosser, and that's the big thing about the French.
And do you think that's something that we, the Irish, need to learn from or need to implement more, or do you think, like Alleged was a dual arc winner and you'd Sadler as well as that influence that he had. Do you think that it necessarily makes that big difference?
The fact that they jump, you mean?
Yeah, the fact that they breed the soundness and maybe the toughness that we're seeing from the French breds.
It's pretty normal for horses to run as full horses in France. Because they probably have them in mind to be stallions afterwards. It's not the case over here, but no, Alleged, like his sons Flemensfurt and Montélimar, others, they've proved that we're capable of getting, really proper national type horses, and
they're just good size.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and tough. Yeah.
We just probably need to
well,
find more of them.
Likewise, yeah. I was big into broodmare sires, and I suppose if I had to do a specialised subject in mastermind, it'd be broodmare sires. And I was introduced to it by a certain M. Dickinson when he was staying with Vincent O'Brien, or working with Vincent O'Brien. He used to stay with us at the weekends. Now, it wasn't just Mary's roast lunch that he came for, but anyway, we won't go any further than there. But he showed me one weekend a theory he had on broodmare sires, and I followed it up annually right until the racehorses, chasers and hurdlers time form finished a couple of years ago, and it was very helpful and very interesting. Given
a choice, would you weigh a broodmare sire over maybe a suspect sire? Would you take a chance?
Yeah. Like the reason I bought the Dame of Organised Confusion, we'd had her in training for the O'Reillys, and she's from a good jumping family, but she's by Cardevin, who was actually pretty better broodmare sire than a sire,
Yeah. Interesting. Well, we could stay chatting all day, which we will. We do have to take a little recess, and after the break we'll bring back in Dave and further our chat.
Thank you, Jane.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.